Catherine Ham, Brian Wilson, Brian Neiman, today's newsmakers, and you. The Morning Majority, 630.
WMAL.
8:07 on the Morning Majority. We're smarter than Kanye most of the time.
That's right. You never know that when the brown shirts may be coming.
I know, it's tough. We have Ian Murray with us today of the Competitive Enterprise Institute. He works on economic freedom there. Also, the author of Stealing You Blind, How Government Fat Cats Are Getting Rich Off of You. How you doing, Ian?
I'm doing very well this morning. Great to be with you.
I wanted to talk to you because you keep track of the red tape and economic freedom and how it affects businesses and citizens. And it occurred to me, a couple months ago we heard this big push from Obama that what they were going to do is they were just going to go through the regulations with a fine-tooth comb. And they were really going to simplify things for businesses. And I just wanted to check on the progress of that. How is that project going?
Well, there's been a lot of fanfare about a lot of regulations that are in the pipeline to repeal. But when you look at it, it's not very much. The annual cost of regulations in the U.S. is something like $1.75 trillion. We've added $62 billion worth of new regulations this year. The regulatory review, once it's all done, will probably take off about $1 billion worth of regulation.
Wow.
So it's really just scratching the surface.
So much like spending, we're just cutting the rate of growth of future regulations or something along those lines.
That's absolutely the case. I mean, we've added 60,000 new regulations with force of law since 1995. We've got a whole bunch in the pipeline for this year. There is no sign of this regulatory behemoth being reduced significantly.
Okay, so let's say, Ian, that you are brought into that special committee that has now been decided to be put together to help us figure out where the next cut should come from. And they all turn to you, Ian, and say, Ian, you know where all the fat is. You study this stuff all the time. Where would you go, and what would you recommend to them? How would we get our budget back in order? Where would you start chopping?
Well, because bureaucracy is the ratchet through which spending increases, I'd look at really cutting back the bureaucracy. I'd look at sweeping away entire government departments.
Such as?
For instance, those departments that do things that the states could do just as easily. So education, housing and urban development, health and human services, they'd be on the chopping block. I'd look at commerce, which just gets in the way of commerce. And
the anti-commerce department.
Absolutely. And similarly, the Department of Energy, which really is an anti-energy department, just wants us to use more expensive forms of energy. Labor, which is a huge lobby for the labor interests within government. We could probably reduce the number of agencies we have by half a dozen to a dozen without serious effect on the serious business of governance.
One of the other things you point out in your book I find very interesting, and I knew this, but I'd just forgotten it, and that is that if you were to cut all of the pork barrel spending projects in the country today, you really wouldn't get at the problem.
Well, absolutely not.
It would help, but you wouldn't really get there.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get rid of all the pork barrel projects because they add so little to the nation. But it's really only about $60 billion worth of spending. So pork is not the problem.
We had a caller earlier in the show that I think really epitomizes the problem with America today. She was against cutting defense spending. She was concerned about that because, she figures that we're fighting two wars right now and we're going to need defense certainly for the next couple of years, if not decades long. Are you still there, Ian?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. and then she went and said, but, you can't cut Social Security now as well. And other people are dependent on Medicare. It seems like everybody, wants everything that comes with being an American today, and that includes Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, defense. So I'm wondering whether or not there is real political will, and the American people, are they schizophrenic on entitlements?
Well,
this is indeed the problem. One of the biggest issues is the home interest mortgage deduction.
Right. We're just having that fight as well.
We were just having that conversation in the room.
Absolutely. everybody benefits from that who owns a home. I benefit from that, but unless the things like that are one of the reasons why we now have a 2.1 million word tax code. Because of all these exemptions that have been put up. I think what we need is a really sweeping reform that reduces that 2.1 million word tax code to a level where everybody can understand it. But because it eliminates all the special interest deductions, we'd probably end up with about the same tax burden on the average individual after we finished.
Yeah.
So that could be a real step forward, but we're unlikely to take it because of all the lobbying for the special interests that goes on.
When you look at the sort of regulatory landscape and the fact that the Obama administration actually isn't doing that much about streamlining, what are the big scary ones coming down the pike that businesses are going, whoa, this is going to change how I have to do business?
Well, Dodd-Frank is already causing a lot of problems, and one of the main reasons it's causing problems is that there are lots of things in Dodd-Frank that haven't actually been implemented yet. Like the various commissions to decide, which businesses are too big to fail. For instance, businesses don't know whether they're going to be designated too big to fail or not, and so there's a massive amount of uncertainty there. Obamacare is going to be adding massive new regulations as well. There's a lot of stuff in the pipeline that has already been passed, but its effects aren't fully known yet. And I fear that once those effects are fully known, then the businesses are going to be in extreme trouble.
Well, and that's because the wise men and women of Congress write these bills and plug in there, and some bureaucrats will write this later. Correct?
That's absolutely the case, and that's
Good.
why I say the bureaucracy is the ratchet through which spending increases.
Yes, it sounds like a really smart way to go about doing business.
Are you optimistic about anything?
I believe that the American people have decided that we really, really do have to cut spending. They haven't decided how we should do that yet.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Yeah. We all like the idea of cutting. We're just not sure how we're going to go about it.
Absolutely, but I think that they're going to start paying attention to this, and we might actually get a consensus on what needs to be cut.
All right, Ian. Good to have you on the show. We appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure.
Ian Murray, author of Stealing You Blind: How Government Fat Cats Are Getting Rich Off